this Marxist stuff is a religion to people now. This lifestyle is a religion to people now.
A few of them spoke to the family and how the family needed to be abolished. They took up the Marxist call to further abolish the family in its current structure. Paulo Freire, he's the Brazilian educational theorist that combined Christianity and Marxism to create a new version of what's called liberation theology.
People go from happy Latter-day Saints or any religion into these blue-haired, flaming, sad individuals who now have a new purpose in life.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kings and I podcast. Today it is just the Kings, and Alex hopefully will join us a little bit later. We'll see where it goes. But for this episode, we're kind of continuing with the Marxist ideas and how they contradict or go against basic gospel principles and things like that, or kind of comparing those thought processes and ideas. And since Skyler was not here last time, we're going to get him in here now so we can get his point of Marxism that he wanted to cover. So the floor is yours, Skyler. Go for it.
All right, thank you for that intro, rolling out the red carpet, man.
Woohoo! We are honored by your presence.
Oh wow! Well, I'm just one of the kings, so I'm the honor's right back at you. So, yeah, it's great to be here. I know I can't make it every time, but so in that sense, I just wanted to follow up on I thought were some productive conversations in the chats in the LDS Teachings versus Marxism video that was posted, what is it, like 10 days ago now?
Something like that, a week and a half ago.
13 days ago now, yes, almost 2 weeks. Yeah, I thought one of the commenters, productively responded, and it turns out one of my comments that I posted is now missing, which was, it kills me because it was like, I genuinely replied to the questions, and okay, so here's the basic gist of my input with regard to like the attacks that are perceived that religious people, and particularly for us Latter-day Saints, we see open rhetorical attacks on the Western nuclear family unit, as it's called. So, man and a woman, like a heterosexual marriage, and with children. So that's the definition. So, I believe it was in the Communist Manifesto. There's at one point that Marx calls for the abolition of the family. And that's what it's called, the abolition of the family.
Sounds troublesome.
A little bit, doesn't it? But let's see. So what he argues is that the family is this barrier between the current setup of the 1850s, 1860s, 1870s, like that time frame where there's really unregulated capitalism, So there are plenty of factories, plenty of, just a lot of industry, but no health for the workers. So he's like, all right, we got to change this. So it's odd to use it for the 21st century, 21st century America, where there is a lot of regulation, more than then, right? We have a lot of regulations via the influence of unions, via the influence of a lot of other interested nonprofits and parties. So there's a lot more regulation of the market so that people can, be able to partake. There's obviously still inequalities. So if, on a few fronts. So what I want to look at, though, is what role the family plays according to that manifesto. So abolish the family. Why? Because to Marx, family was seen as a unit of again, a barrier between those who have and those who basically have not, the proletariat and the elites in the society. And so the family why abolish the family? Because the family to him was this unit that said, okay, there's one or two people that are going to go and work. They're just going to, all their work is going to be traded for money, and that money is going to be used to then help these individuals, the children, consume. You go out and pay for more product that someone else labored for, that isn't going to see much profit or much income from, except for the person who owns that business, who makes the things for the kids. And so it goes back and forth with like all of these like oppressed identities, alienated from their labor is their term, because they just make money now, as opposed to like being recognized for their skills and talents that's just monetized. And so now the family is just this unit of consumption to a Marxist. So and I wanted to raise this concern because there was a good comment in the thread in that video that was confused about why there's a jump from like economic Marxism to cultural Marxism. And there was a comment one of the comments said that cultural Marxism is conspiracy theory. And so there is this idea of that is like anti-Semitic. So that's an issue that exists on its own, but then there's this pivot. Anyone who says that cultural Marxism is a conspiracy is also pivoting away from how in the 20th century, academics, like at the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory, like Paulo Freire, who's a Brazilian educational theorist, my advisor published with Paulo Freire. My advisor was Donaldo Macedo at UMass Boston. He published the intro to Pedagogy of the Oppressed that Paulo Freire wrote. He was looking at the oppressive Brazilian dictatorship at the time and how education worked to just indoctrinate youth. And so what happened was, from that critical theory of the 40s and 50s, there's Horkheimer, Adorno, Marcuse, and a few others that were like the leading luminaries of that school of thought where it's critical. It was like neo-Marxist. They took up Marxism, the economic application, but then they said, what about cultural production? And the postmoderns took up some Marxism too, like Foucault, Derrida, and Barthes, and Louis Althusser, definitely. But a few of them spoke to the family and how the family needed to be abolished. They took up the Marxist call to further abolish the family in its current structure, that heterosexual patriarchal structure. And so what happened was, throughout the last like 4 decades of the 20th century and into the first 2 of this century, Paulo Freire's book has been, it's been like cited, I think over 1 million copies sold. It's been cited more than Marx. And across my 3 degrees, it's prominent. I had seminars specifically on just critical pedagogy at my first master's degree from 2012 to 2015. Another seminar on critical pedagogy and writing, so how to teach via that paradigm, at my Cal State master's. And then here in my PhD, I also have it's also featured in courses, but it's evolved. It's been taken up further by intersectionality, queer theory, even feminism. So
what exactly is your, for our audience, what exactly are your your degrees and your masters and all that stuff, like?
Oh, sure. I'll take
PhD, like what exactly is it that you're going for, and where you've seen that stuff, you know what I mean? Just so people are like, well, it's just so random, has nothing to do with whatever you're learning. But
well, no, I'm just trying to teach writing, academic writing, and how to teach it effectively.
Right.
My first master's is in applied linguistics, which is an interdisciplinary field that mixes quantitative and qualitative methods of research. And then there's my second master's is in English composition. And I completed that in 2020. And that's what helped me get into my PhD, which is in rhetoric and writing.
All right.
So that's where I'm at. I've taught ESL. I've been an adjunct for almost 10 years now at colleges, in person and online. I've taught 70 sections over that time frame, over those like 9 years of writing and research courses. I'll be teaching a course on technical writing and AI in the fall in my PhD program.
Cool. Yeah, I remember you telling me about that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah. So you're seeing this stuff across basically since the beginning of your secondary schooling and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I came across some of it in my BA, but that was because I was searching out, trying to figure out theories for my BA in English about how to interpret literature,
Mhm.
how to interpret specifically J.R.R. Tolkien. And
Gotta love Tolkien.
oh yeah, absolutely. So Mego Venom to all the Tolkien followers out there. Or Eden Sila Luminum Enti Elvo.
Oh.
Yeah, man, I'm dropping.
Does someone say Tolkien and speak Elvish?
Hey, is that all I need to do to get you here?
There it is.
Oh man, I was like, wait, I hear him quoting Elvish language. I recognize this stuff.
Yeah, I was just completing my analysis, and Ryan said, "Hey, tell us what your degrees are in, what you're aiming for," and then it eventually led to Tolkien. I don't know. So
I
well,
hope so you guys can talk behind my back in Elvish if you want to. So.
No, I just recognize it when it's spoken. I don't understand it yet. I have yet to get to that level. Sky has reached a whole level of that I hope to achieve one day.
hey man, I've got apps you can use to learn Elvish. They're out there.
Oh my
Are you
word.
serious?
Yeah, for
Wait,
sure.
which app?
It is called.
Dude, I'm still trying to figure out English.
Me too. English is hard.
Why say a lot of words when a few words do trick, you know?
Exactly. Hold on a sec. Let me yeah, Elvish. I could just type in Tolkien, I guess.
Is it Duolingo? Because I didn't see it in Duolingo.
No, it's not Duolingo. There's the Sindarin dictionary. It's okay, the Grey Elvish, but I think it might be Fielding is what it's called. It does pretty good. Yeah. So it's Ithil, Ithil, Ithildin. That's pretty good. Yeah, I'd stick with that one for now. That's probably
Dude, you could be like the Navajo code talkers in World War II when China invades or something. You know, we'd be talking Elvish over the radios. People have any idea what's going on.
Yeah, that'd be the way to go, I guess. Yeah. So
yeah, back to the point here. So
that's
Scott,
okay.
Well, I was just gonna say, a part of your background, and everyone should understand this, Sky, is because you have for more than a decade now, right? You've been fighting the good fight amongst the woke left in some of its deepest ranks that are not strictly political. So meaning education is what I'm saying.
I'll correct you there. The personal is political, and they teach the personal. So they see the classroom as a completely political space. Sorry.
Yeah. So
that's what I've understood. That's what I
yeah.
see.
Exactly. So people should understand that you've been trying to get a PhD, two of them or just one of them. Either way, you've been trying to get a really high level of education, and the whole time you've had to fight against these woke ideas, and you've not just flew under the radar. You decided to do the brave thing, which was to be forthright and to be honest and to use real critical thinking and to challenge other people's thinking every time you have discussions, which I think is amazing because it has caused you to be extremely well read in all these things. I mean, part of it is you have been forced to read it as part of your training, right? To make sure that you've been indoctrinated thoroughly enough to then be, accepted into the into the false priesthoods of Marxism. That's basically what's been going on. And so you've read all this stuff. You've done clear studies on a lot of these things, including the things people spout off as evidence, right, to support their ideas. You're like, have you actually read this? And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's read this stuff. So I just wanted to throw that out there because we know this about you, others may not. So you really have a really deep understanding of the love Marxists have for their own principles, for their own doctrine, and how extremely wrong it is. How much it contradicts the fullness of the gospel.
Yeah, I've certainly, just to summarize what you said, I've wanted to learn how to teach writing in academic settings effectively, but I learned over time, I've been learning how to and been trained how to teach social justice writing. That's kind of the best way I can condense that across the 2 master's degrees. Really, it was the second master's degree that did get intense, but the first one, I was telling Ryan, my advisor published with the luminary of critical pedagogy, Paulo Freire. He's the Brazilian educational theorist that combined Christianity and Marxism to create a new version of what's called liberation theology. It's very Marxist, materialist based, but yeah,
Can I just ask you a question? Because
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, because I've heard you talk about liberation theology many times. I didn't realize that that was specifically created by merging Christianity and Marxism together, which I find extremely disconcerting, because now I know just how intentional this new form of religion was. Because for
Yeah.
me, from my study of civilizations and human beings and human behavior across time, I have concluded, and I wrote this in my book, that human beings cannot live without religion. Like, we naturally gravitate towards ascribing something in our lives as the highest moral authority,
Mhm.
by which we navigate our systems of beliefs, and the systems of beliefs give us the guidelines by which we live our lives.
Mhm.
And so we can't just be like, God's dead, there's no religion, religion's dumb. We're going to formulate beliefs, and we're also going to steer towards congregationalism, right? We want to have groups, right? Socialization, right?
Yeah.
But as much as people pretend like, I'm an anarchist, you're a moron, because human beings don't actually want anarchy. We want stability so badly, we're willing to endure tyranny for it.
Yeah.
So far as I've seen. But I think it's just freaky, the fact that you just said liberation theology was intentionally merging those two, because
And
I feel like every LDS person should recognize it. It just drives me nuts when LDS people don't realize that they are merging something satanic into the gospel.
Yeah, so what happened was, so liberation theology, it also exists. There are a couple other guys that created it, and he took it, but what Paulo Freire did in the 60s and 70s under the dictatorship then, and what he perceived was the indoctrination of school youth. He said, look, I'm Roman Catholic, but they're failing to meet the needs of the poor. And then he read of Marx and Marxism, and he was like, this is it. We focus on the material circumstances, and we'll shift it and change. And so he said Marxism could fulfill what his Roman Catholicism was failing to do, which was meet the needs of the poor. And so he saw the Roman Catholicism of the day in his time. He grew up in the slums in the Recife, in Recife, Brazil, and so he said, if they're not going to do it, they're just oppressing the people, they're just taking their money, and then they're not helping, then I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it via Marxism and the principles of Marxism. And so he wrote, and he specifically didn't create any methods. Methods are like clear steps, right? But what he did was he articulated a lot of principled visions of how to fulfill this in his book called Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which my advisor wrote the intro for. Donaldo Macedo was my advisor at UMass Boston. So we had my practicum involved us, like that's like the very end of a master's degree in teaching. For instance, you put your theory to practice and you observe a course for a period of time. I observed 2 ESL writing courses at my college where I was working out full time. And so in the middle of my day, I would go and observe these 2 classes. And so I stretched out my day to make sure I could observe. And that was like the very beginning of 2015. I finished that, completed my master's, but we read another of his books, another of Freire's books, and every week we read a chapter and applied what those ideas were. And I wanted to come to this to understand what people believed in, because I noticed people, especially younger generations, not believing in what would be called traditional American religions, any kind of Protestant Christianity in America. And so I was like, I want to understand if I'm to try and teach and preach the gospel, share my testimony and with anybody that believes these things, and I've got to understand them. So I would ask people, and then I'd also want to understand where those ideas came from, just as I want to understand where all the various, I try to contextualize each section of the Doctrine and Covenants as best I could within history. I wanted to understand the circumstances that produced these ideas. And so it led me to not only teach writing, but then understand the theories that inform how people like to teach writing today in universities and colleges. So hence my second master's degree. And then I wanted to also, generate research and try and, study it further. So PhD in rhetoric and writing. And I've seen it's kind of been like a PhD in social justice rhetoric and social justice writing. Half my courses, we focus on how we can change technical communication to be social justice oriented, to decolonize technical communication journals, to decolonize the discipline. So that's a bit strong, too long arc here. But the idea is, simply put, yes, I've come to comprehend the ideas because I wanted to, and I really was open to understanding, because I thought there's got to be good in this. So yeah, there was Freire, who then took liberation theology, but he even further mixed like Marxism with his understanding of Christianity, a specific understanding of Roman Catholicism specifically. So that was taken up by people here in America. Ira Shore is one of the names. They wrote a critical pedagogy reader. It's in my office on campus. But their basic intent was to share critical theory, critical pedagogy as much as they could to liberate the oppressed in America. And so they've done it. It's been, Pedagogy of the Oppressed is sold worldwide like more than 1 million copies. It's cited more than Marx now, but it's a take-up of Marx, and people don't get that. This is what's missing and misunderstood. And also, the religious aspect was not studied. In 2018, I started noticing this, that all the take-up and criticism of Paulo Freire was about the Marxism, but not the Roman Catholicism. And lo and behold, like other scholars who were established in the field started publishing in like late 18 after my seminar, and 19 focusing on, hey, what was the liberation theology background of Marx? Because a lot of the people that previously cited him were not religious, and they were very religious critical. And so they just overlooked his religion or didn't even know it. And so I think this is really important. This is really important because it shows how much there's so much more evidence, but I wasn't prepared to share this. But the point is, there's a lot that feeds religiosity in my fellow peers and graduate students and in younger students, because it focuses on the poor. So it focuses so much, but it also sort of turns it into a kind of a gospel experience. And I've got a lot. I'm trying to write my Substack about that. And so critical race theory comes from the critical, right? Frankfurt School of Critical Theory. And to Ryan's point, when we were talking about earlier about the family, and we were taking up from the previous video, is this, that the family plays a fundamental role in Marxist critique economically, and also in the 20th century critical cultural critique. The family plays a fundamental role in both critiques. They want to do away with it either way, but they want to do away with it a little bit differently in application, but same in principle. That's what I was trying to get at earlier, Alex. So you'll see in the first half of the video where we were recording, you'll see my discussion of that.
Have you guys ever seen the movie called Equilibrium?
Ooh, the Christian Bale one?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That's a pretty cool movie, actually.
So they call the
Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Matrix, but instead of it being this like everyone's a robot and there's this computer, it's like the metaverse, but on steroids. Instead of it being like that,
it's like a mix of The Giver and The Matrix.
That's a really good point, and it's more realistic in terms of like a society really could do this instead of it being this weird. Everyone's living deep in the earth because it's too cold up top, and everyone's
like, nah, this is how it could function.
Yeah, it's like this is how society now functions, and so the reason why I bring this up is because the way what you're describing and how you're like, and I'm now learning how to do You're having to write all these, learn how to write as an advocate for all this woke stuff. I'm like, Little do they know, he's the cleric, the Christian Bale guy. He's the cleric that they never saw coming. Because in that movie,
I gotta watch it.
clerics are the most trained, highest elites. They hunt out anyone who can feel, because the society all has to take these drugs that keep them from having emotion, because they believe emotion is what drives to war, causes all the problems. So as a cleric, you're like the most elite warrior, and you hunt people down who do feel, and you eliminate them.
Yeah.
And something changes that, and now
and all that kind of stuff.
that's right. And now he can feel by accident, and now he's like, he's like their most elite warrior, and then he topples the society. So it's like Hunger Games too, almost.
Isn't it always so interesting though? Like in movies and even in books, right? The biggest threat to society is always a massive government system.
Yeah.
That's basically based on communist, socialist, Marxist principles of like, they don't allow people to do this, so we got to topple it. It's like, yeah,
Ryan,
exactly what, the founding fathers did. The idea of personal freedoms and liberties, like those things always went out in the end, even in the movies.
Well, Ryan, though, I do need to ask you to correct yourself there, because we're talking about fiction. See, in fiction, it makes sense when the government is the oppressive and evil thing. In real life,
You're
the
right.
government, it's like my wife. It can stay in the bed with me at night when I sleep. It's there to make me breakfast in the morning. It's there to, let me know when I should go to the dentist. It's my best friend. It has my best interest at heart.
Right. The government does everything for you. So actually, Skyler, while you were talking, I was thinking about, you were on such a roll, I didn't want to stop you, but it was a little bit further back, but you were talking about how
Very far back, yeah. Talk a lot on a roll.
But you're kind of talking about the initial part of talking about where the Marxist and Christianity ideas came together for that liberation kind of thing.
Yeah.
And sorry, I don't retain information in my mind very well. But anyways, it
You do.
it was just making me think about, like, this Marxist stuff is a religion to people now. This lifestyle is a religion to people now. And it's, I found it interesting you're talking about Christianity and all this kind of stuff, and how people will rely on some kind of big system to handle something for them, right? You were talking about the guy thought that the Roman Catholic Church wasn't taking care of enough people and this and that. And definitely there's a point to, hey, like, I pay my tithing, right, to go to the poor to help people. But is that as far as your responsibility takes you? Like, why are you not, as members of the church, why are you not going out and helping those? Are you just like, I gave my my money to the church and they're supposed to spend it wisely, and they're not, so we got to change the whole system? It's like, well, maybe you just need to, right, be a better minister. I don't know. But it made me think about, what's a great example of a group of people in the last 4 years, we'll say Summer of Love time. What's a classic example, or not classic, sorry, a great example in modern history in the last 5 years of a group of people that have felt marginalized and oppressed and all this kind of stuff, and relied on a group of people, including politicians, that said, hey, give us your money and we will handle this. But then they created no steps, like you said, Skyler. They created no steps to solve anything, and they actually just kind of disappeared.
With everyone's money.
Huh?
With everyone's money.
With everyone's money, who also said, hey, we need to get rid of the family, the nuclear family.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar to anybody?
I think it's like Bureau of Land Management. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Something like some kind of BL. I don't know. Everyone turned their Instagram pictures into like this big black circle or something. I don't remember. The picture was a black circle that funnily, or hysterically, kind of slowly drifted away as people realized what was actually happening.
When that was happening, I was because I'm doing marketing, I remember having to turn off tons of clients' ads because they're like, hey, they're like messing with everyone. They don't have a black dot on it. Just turn them off. They were like seriously terrorizing people online. But anyway, so the Bureau of Land Management is what you're talking about. But Sky, we keep derailing you. So you have this something that you want to share, which actually I'm excited to hear. So I don't mean to detract from what you're doing, cleric.
Yes,
I think we got a new nickname for Skyler now. He could be
Yeah, we do.
I got to see this movie now.
cool movie. You'd like it actually.
Sounds fascinating. So basically, I wanted to take up one of the comments from the previous video, which expressed confusion about how I could connect Marxism to like DEI, CRT to today, right? 1850s to 2010s, 2020s. So the basic idea is, yeah, Marxism focuses on the material conditions that alienate people from all the hard work they do, the capital that's created to create that alienation. So they're removed from the means of production in society that way, and also because their labor turns into capital, and therefore the capital goes to the elite, the business owner, whatever it is, and not to all the proletariat that poorly, live and work. So Marxism really spells out the way that you can gain means of that control and why they should gain the means of that economic production, the means of production, right? That's the famous phrase. Now I said, okay, critical race theory emerged from also, and critical pedagogy emerged from ideas made popular by the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory. There were individuals in Europe who eventually came to America, but they also, discussed ideas regarding the application of Marxism to culture production. So cultural means of production. What are the cultural means of production in society that allow people in America, for instance, or Western Europe, to go along with this capitalist ideology? And so, and the family plays a big role in this, which is why I'll transition from the family to the culture. So Ryan already heard this, but the family unit is supposed to be abolished inside Marxism. The Communist Party Manifesto describes this from long ago. He said the family needs to be abolished because the family is just a means of consumption. It's just a unit of consumption inside the capitalist project that oppresses everyone else, the proletariat, and it acts as a barrier between that protects the rich, and the proletariat are over here. So the family does this because there's a man. If it's a heterosexual patriarchal family, the nuclear, Western nuclear family unit.
Well, now, so I'm not a biologist, but I'm pretty sure a family is formed through heterosexual ways, correct?
Stop with that. That's nonsense.
Oh, all right. Okay. This is my one time per episode where I have to check my privilege. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Well done. So the idea here is that the family is that barrier, and then if you remove it, you break it down, then you're able to get the means. Oh, hey, honey. Good night, sweetie pie. I love you.
Would you be able to play with me?
Yeah, I'll be in there in just a little bit. Yeah.
You can't abolish that family, man. That is so sweet.
Yeah, right.
It's awesome. I love it.
Totally planned that, didn't you? Like,
I did.
Oh, okay.
That was totally planted. I told my kid to stay up late at 10:02 and to walk in right as I was talking about the family. So
classic hetero cis male white move right there.
Wow. Hey, see, you do remember the jargon. That was good.
It's in there somewhere.
So now I take that as the family is just that means of consumption because the male goes out, makes money, or she does too, the wife, and but the kids, they're all just consumers. And so all of society today is still the same way, where it's just all meant to have the family just keep consuming. And so you've got to remove this structure. The structure is what's really causing it's upholding this whole oppressive structure of the poor and the proletariat that don't fit. And so you can see how this blends well with cultural critique that began in the 40s, but really accelerated in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and then 80s and 90s. It really took hold, and now it's a norm. critical pedagogy. And so you can see then how someone like a movement like Black Lives Matter, which, Patrice Cullors said she was trained Marxist, the abolishment of the family was clearly present in there because it's Marxist inspired. So, but the idea is that the family then into this patriarchal heterosexual structure must be abolished too, because now anyone who doesn't fit within that paradigm is being oppressed. They want to call it oppression. They want to take that oppressor-oppressed binary from the elite and the proletariat, and you got the bourgeois in there. So you've got now in the cultural critique that I wanted to respond to in that video. I did respond, but Ryan and I were noticing my comment's not there anymore. So I'm like, Alex, did you delete that? But we'll get to that later. I don't
Heck no, I would never delete your
man. Come on.
so that's how it fits with the family. So that's why it's important that we understand, because no one markets it openly as Marxism. It is take up of Marxism in iterations. Like it's neo-Marxist in their own way. There's Marcusian neo-Marxism, but then it's also anything with critical in front of it. Critical pedagogy, the Paulo Freire influenced educational paradigm, right? Critical pedagogy, critical race theory. It examines race relations, and then there's whiteness as the cultural product. So cultural production creates anything that values white thinking, white habits, white behavior. That's whiteness. It's a commodity, a cultural commodity. And if society, because whites are the majority race in society, then they have, the critique is, then the system will just keep producing for them. So if you want to be in the system and be powerful, you have to engage with this whiteness now. So anyone could engage in whiteness and be white, but you're now just engaging in a form of oppression for anyone who chooses not to be white, right? So to be on time, all these other and a host of other cultural habits and practices out. Yeah, Alex.
Yeah, like being on time, like you had just said, being on time.
Part of it. This is the cultural critique that people have used Marxism to disrupt society today. It's manifested in this way. This is why it's not odd for Marxism to be mentioned, but you have to understand the transition over these decades to have that make sense. It's no longer economic critique, it's cultural Marxist critique. And so it tears at the family structure as this normative oppressive thing rather than an institution, rather than just a normal dominant way of living. And so anyways, there's a lot to say more about that, but I know you had something to say.
My question was, what is the predetermined value that the critique comes from, right? They have to value something in order to say, there's a critique of the family that is vital, right? We need to change the culture. So what is their value source? I don't want to say source, it's not correct, but what is their value block that they are navigating and theorizing this from? Is it power? Is it like what would you say, right? Because in order to be critical of something, of anything, to create a critique of it, you have to presuppose something is better than it, right? Sure. And I know that has to be the case, because people go from happy Latter-day Saints or any religion into these blue-haired, flaming, sad individuals who now have a new purpose in life.
Not even life, they have a whole new identity.
Yeah, exactly. They do have a whole new identity. So Sky, what is that? Like what do they theorize then? Like what do they propose or suppose?
Like what is the end goal, you mean? Or the origin?
Well, actually, I'd be interested to hear what you say the end goal is, but what is their where is the value source that they come from, that they can springboard into something even better? So I'll give you an example. What was his name in Brazil? The guy in Brazil?
Paulo Freire.
Paulo Freire. So Paulo Freire, it sounds like from the way you're explaining it, that his value source he's coming from is there will be better living conditions for the people generally, because the church was not doing its charitable part and just taking money from individuals. So he creates a critique and in a new way of looking at things to move people to somewhere different, because the value that he presupposes is there's a better way to take care of the people, right? Particularly of the poor. So therefore, let's merge this Roman Catholicism with these Marxist ideas, and let's do something. Let's take care of the individual better than the other individuals, better than the previous institution.
Yeah, I mean, it's very Marxist in its own way. So really showing how it's critiquing how power manifests in society, how it's formed, and how certain institutions manifest and maintain that power. That's basically it. It's supposed to be liberatory, meaning to liberate people from this like binary. If there's ever a binary, so they look for a binary. They my professors, my peers will simply look at disparities, racial or gender disparities, and say immediately, that's oppression. We need to liberate people from that. Because it even goes back further. They really despise the postmodern thinkers like Jacques Derrida and Michel Foucault and Roland Barthes and even Nietzsche. I think Nietzsche's brilliant. There's so much good about what Nietzsche wrote. I could talk about that another time. But basically, what's going on is that they don't want to see binaries, good, bad, like Aristotelian forms in them, like the perfect forms out there in the universe that we can perceive with our bodies and with logic and reason and rationale. We can't use those anymore because it's only gotten us like battles. It's just one against the other. And so what Marx did, he's like, all right, he took up someone called Hegel, and it's called the Hegelian synthesis, where you have a thesis and an antithesis, oppressor and oppressed. They're fighting against each other. We have to remove that binary. And when we do, a new human will emerge. Nietzsche kind of called this the Übermensch, the Superman. We break down all the old constructs that just keep pitting us against each other, the rich and the poor, again and again and again. And we got to create a new utopian synthesis of we break it down, something new will be built, and this is the utopia we seek. Essentially, that's very much it. So this running prophecy, kind of not a prophecy, but it's kind of is, but that's the main gist. That's why binary opposition exists today. It's why they still though use their own binary, which is I find contradictory. But they create their own binary, right? The oppressor and the oppressed, white and everybody else, male, everybody else, right? Male is in the bottom now, and everybody else is on the numerator of this binary. So white, male, heterosexual, the Western prescribed nuclear family unit is down here on the bottom. We need every other identity because again, we're looking at cultural critique. The Marxist economic critique failed, and so it also failed in a certain extent with the failure of the USSR and other communist states. To a certain extent, China has defied that gravity recently, but it's incorporated a lot of capitalism. That's why it's working the way it works.
We fed it. We moved all of our production to China.
That's it. It's the cultural critique. It's the cultural criticism now that's trying to undo whatever cultural structures are in the way, whether it's in education, the corporate sphere,
religion,
and honestly, religion, government, also your basic things like the family unit. Like it just comes down to people who adhere to this belief system really do believe that they identify what they think are sincere problems. Like I know people who sincerely believe it. Not just because there were two grad students who said they were Marxist. Like that's how they said that's their knowledge orientation in the world, right? Like, and then there was actually someone from a Marxist state. She's from China. She's like 40 years old, and she was like, I don't ever want to be in China again. It oppresses me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. I'm sitting here, I'm just like, let's just see how this plays out. Like I could critique it, but everything she would say, she's from China. Like she's like, I had to read the red book of not Mao, but Xi Jinping every Friday as a faculty in our faculty meetings for like the last 3 years. And she got there in like 21. Like it was bizarre. Like, you're like, oh, we worship somebody and their perfect brain. They still worship, like you said before, there's still religion. So there is this component. This is why there's a component of trying to remove whatever is normal. And if you're able to find enough evidence for a society being oppressed, then you got to remove those elements that keep reproducing. And so that's why the family is seen as that structure again, not just in economic terms, but also in cultural. So Western American cultural terms, you got to disrupt that family unit so that we can break down all the cultural productions in society, change the movies that people watch, change the music that people watch, change the religion that people live. But they think they're changing culture for the better. That's the thing. There are plenty of people who legitimately think it is the right way to usher in this new way of living. They might not understand all the theorists that I have read, but plenty of them that I have met do believe it. And so it's a sincere belief, and I'm trying to understand it, why they think it's a sincere belief. And they all have different answers to a certain extent, but the theorists are all there. And yeah, it's kind of disturbing. Once people see it, they're like, I can't unsee that. Like I get now why there's such a move to queer everything, to really attack gender norms. Or at least some people don't like saying attack, but there are some people who attack. There are some people who just want to criticize it, and they're like, well, so anyways, that's the motivation.
Well, can I say, I just want to interject here, because I think you were right when you said power, because if all of the vehicles that they produce, right, that they conjure up to divide us, to break down the cultural means of production, especially the family, has everything to do with the fact that they don't like the way power of any sort, especially political, economic, and financial, or economic and financial, that's the same thing. But political and economic power is wielded because it's not wielded by them. Therefore, they can create all sorts of vehicles whose only purpose is to destroy these vehicle means of the culture, of cultural means of production, because ultimately it allows them to assume more power. Because as they are allowing people to be liberated, right, they become dependent upon them. They turn to them, they worship them, they say, like, hey, I have now freed myself from my family, and now I don't know how to take care of myself. I need house. I need food, need money. I'll vote for you. I'll do whatever else, because these people, the only thing they presuppose, power is better off within their own hands. It's never actually, there's no altruistic feeling towards the individual here. It has everything to do with manipulation of power, constraining it back towards their direction. And then what they do is they're very good at evangelizing these vehicles and make them sound so sincere and so I guess appealing. It's like,
It's all feel good.
yeah, I hear you. You're not man, you're not woman, right? You're somewhere in between. I get that, right? Like they are really good at appealing to the emotional distress of individuals, right? And also manipulating the emotionally weak. I should, I'm saying that those who are easily manipulated emotionally, they're very good to appealing to those individuals and talking to them. But the only value source of them is power.
So are you referring to doctors? Are you referring to educators? Are you referring to school counselors? Are you referring to politicians?
All
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like,
because like you were saying, Skyler, it's manifested itself in basically every field.
Yeah, I mean, it's to larger or smaller degrees. I mean, there are the real adherents there, I think, still minuscule, but a lot of people believe the sort of watered down versions. And so they'll accept the more palatable, like the more acceptable, kind of more harmless phrases,
wait, can you be specific in the LDS community, how LDS people are accepting the more watered down versions? Because that's what the people here in this channel need to hear, because that's what's happening all over.
So I'm not very I am currently not on social media enough to know, for instance, or even like people around me to know, even in like the wards or things I've been a part of, to say like where that definitely exists. I think I've seen on a larger level, like at during 2021, definitely with BYU's study and initiative to create like the what is it, the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and
Belonging.
yeah. I would say that like there was that take up. That was a big institutional take up.
Yeah.
So sometimes I wonder what people think about some comments that are made, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you see it more than I do, but I think that was like a big take up, was that one, was at BYU, and its response also to its kind of knee jerk response to Rachel Richardson's uh, kind of race hoax, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
when she lied about that BYU student at the volleyball game, the Duke BYU volleyball game.
Yeah.
Um, yelling racial epithets and slurs, and all evidence to the contrary. But BYU had made a choice to expel the student outright, and I think the athletic director at BYU also said how heinous and disgusting this was, and I'd seen this enough where I was like, no, they fell into the pattern again. That's a whole other conversation I think we need to have, but that's where I've seen it manifest. I don't know where have you seen it.
I would say probably the most common place I see it is this watering down of sin and the repentance process and love.
So is it from like people's social media, or is it like church leaders?
Oh, just even in church classes. So if I were to boil it down to the dumb phrase we all know, it's love is love. Love is love. Or it's like, it's like just love these individuals. Like
live and let live kind of
yeah,
thing.
live and let live, love, love, like we can't be judgmental. We can't judge these individuals. It's like what you're doing is you're playing with a stigma that none of us are actually exemplifying. We just have to be able to speak plainly the truth about, is this a sin or is it not? Please say yes or no. Does God want us to abandon this sin and come unto him? Yes or no? Will we find more happiness by doing so? Yes or no? Can we help other individuals enjoy the exact same process and liberation from sin unto Christ by helping them know it's wrong? Or you're not calling people sinners, but we do say, hey man, Christ is here for you. There's a better way to do this.
Yeah.
I definitely hear the lot of Christ was among the sinners, right? Like, isn't that where he spent his time? Yeah, to help them change their ways, not to say, hey, it's okay, it's okay. It's like, no, he says, to what's her name? The woman that was caught in adultery, right? Go and sin no more. Right? How many people did he really tell that to? Everybody he met, pretty much. Like, don't be an idiot anymore. Fix yourself according to these things. So yes, he did spend his time amongst the sinners, which isn't hard because we're all sinners except for him. And so that's kind of a moot point anyways in that argument. But he didn't let them stay in their sins, right? He encouraged them to get out of them. He didn't force them to get out of them either. So there's, anyways.
Yeah, we put all this padding around that which is extremely diabolical to someone's spiritual life and physical, emotional life. Sorry, Sky, I don't mean to keep derailing you. So
No, I was just trying to find a quote that had to deal with an understanding of tolerance.
By Elder Oaks?
May have been. Did you share it with me? But yeah, I like to be clear about also who takes up the movement and just doesn't understand where it comes from, like really where it comes from. So genuinely, I do know a lot of people who want to take up LGBTQIA plus identities and support them in ways that may be counterintuitive or counter their own presence. And so there is the watered down version of the love is love, like you were saying, Ryan or Alex. And so I think it's really important to I guess my example is in 2020, I saw a BLM protest in my California town, and I drove past and I was like, yeah, man. I mean, there's some injustice that's going on, and I want to be a part of, helping to voice that. But I was like, but I'm going to go home and figure out who BLM is. Like, I didn't know at the time. So I went home and I was like, oh, that's who BLM is. Okay, I know something about Marxism and how they're cultural critique. And then I was like, yeah, and I was like, what are its beliefs and values? Oh, okay, abolish the nuclear family unit. And they said disrupt the nuclear family unit. And I know what that means, but I just was like, okay, fine, I'm not going to go protest there. I'm sorry, I'm just not. It's I think it's an inaccurate critique about the role the family plays. I don't think it should be abolished at all. And I don't like the solution provided to the abolishment. It doesn't work. I think it's a very terrible proposition to disrupt the family unit and replace it with some kind of state-centered communitarian version.
Which is impossible to even have happen anyway. Like,
well, in a broad society too, like you're removing various, like you're promoting the dissolution of various ethnic, cultural reliances on family. Like you're destroying ethnic identities, for one thing, which they profess they don't ever want to do, but they are doing it when you want to remove the family, which is central to any society on earth. Like,
yeah, right.
Every minority in this country focuses so much on family. Like it's crazy how much it does, unless the government's intervened to a certain extent. And yeah, the Great Society,
right? Yeah, and look where the
so yeah, there's gosh, there's a lot. I can take a break. I'm gonna go see if my kid's there.
Go for it.
Oh, I'm gonna step out for a second.
Yeah, go for it.
And I might actually have to go in like a couple of minutes because it's been a little while. I know I joined with Ryan back around, it was after 9:15, so I might have to go in like 5 minutes anyways, but maybe I should end it here then.
Well, did you want to, so you laid out a really awesome in-depth detail about the family, like how they want to break down the cultural means of protection and the family unit. So what's kind of the gospel antithesis of this that we should hold truer to, that would help us combat these ideas, even their softball versions of them?
So before Skyler answers with his very in-depth answers, I just want to give my quick and dirty on this one.
Go for it.
So, plain and precious truths, baby, right? The mental gymnastics that these people have to make to justify these Marxist ideas, especially in the gospel and how they go against the gospel. It's like, I don't know. The answers are so simple, right? Christ is simplicity.
Amen.
So that, again, Skyler, you go now with your.
All right, plain and precious truths. It's a very, very apt phrase answer, man. So the question again is specifically, what would be a gospel-centered answer to help counter that kind of attack on the family, or that kind of, the attempt to disrupt the family?
Yeah.
I mean, I think living so that you take care of your family first is probably best.
So fulfilling your responsibilities to your family.
Yeah, I think that's.
I'm dumbing down what you say into like,
evil capitalist
caveman language, so I understand. I comprehend.
I'm an exploitative, capitalist. Uphold the patriarchy.
Yeah.
So how to counter it is, I mean, I can't find the answer for everyone, because it's going to depend on in what situation you find yourself. You find yourself among, ostensibly like friends, then, who are kind of forwarding the ideas of like BLM, you can always ask questions, or if they're forwarding other ideas that seem to like undermine the understanding of the family as like an effective unit of family and society. And I mean, I think you can just say, well, I mean, my lived experience shows it works rather well. I mean, I know not everybody's families work really well. That's fair. But as far as abolishing it, it doesn't really make much sense. But no one's really going to go with like the understanding that I presented with to you, because no one reads that unless you're in it. I'm in it. I'm the cleric. Is that the term?
It'll make sense once you watch.
Honestly, I don't have a good answer. That's the short answer. I'm not sure how to exactly articulate everything I'm saying into perfectly soluble like little bites. I'm trying to like via my Substack, but as far as this specific question, I'd really like to actually try and answer that. But I know, as far as I know, is honoring, as far as an LDS perspective, is seeking to really live and honor the covenants you've made to whatever family you're in. I don't know. It's going to be a different answer for a mother and a father, for a single mom, a single dad, for parents, adult children of even older adult parents, right? Like we're all going to have different answers for that. But I think as long as it also helps to uphold that family structure, that provides a place in a home for people to practice gospel principles, a place to practice those. You can come up against any one of these arguments, any one of these sophisticated arguments, and can work things out. Have an open family discussion, one-on-one, multiple people, and so I don't know if that sounds very applicable or not, but that's kind of what I've done. But I just keep reading. Keep my mind open to what I don't know and what I do, and tiring sometimes, but gosh, I love reading because I know people believe in it. So I love being able to have a discussion about what they think. I often just, if anything other than those like kind of like gospel-centered answers, ask questions. Why do you believe this? Not even to insert your own ideas. I just ask questions. That's what I do. Because then I learn, and I learn what they value, and I learn what matters, and usually I can connect in some way. And so then there's this like, okay, we're not antagonistic, we're just disagreeing about something.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it. What about you, Alex?
Honestly, I loved what you just said. And it sounds like your approach, especially when thinking of those who believe in some of these things sincerely, is to to ask questions, to empathize, to give them an empathetic ear, someone who's going to hear them and actually hear what they have to say, not play gotcha, but
Oh yeah,
to just like, oh, well, have you considered this, right? Like, oh, so it sounds like this and this and this. Because when people feel heard, then they're likely to listen. Isn't that one of the principles of Covey? For
yeah, I mean it does this, right? It's like, okay, dumb down.
yeah, first seek to understand and then seek to be understood. And I think that's exactly right. And we need that in our own families, especially if anyone's leaning a particular direction. I would say one of the other things is President Nelson has talked extensively about getting better at learning how to receive revelation and to rely upon the Holy Ghost to increase our spirituality, because we need something called discernment. It's something I find sadly foolish on the part of Latter-day Saints, and because I hold Latter-day Saints to a higher level of accountability, I say you should be able to discern that these things are evil. Therefore, when you love your child, you don't take a confused child who the world is literally attacking constantly. You don't take their confusion and say, well, I love you, so yes, let me enable you in this direction. Rather, you discern where this leads. And you say, no, I got you. I'm here for you. It's not, get out of my house, you weirdo. It's I love you more than life itself. And I can't let you destroy yourself, but I'm not going to throw you to the wolves to be consumed.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Well,
that was a good answer. Because you need to be able to understand the individual. And to understand them is to truly love them.
So here would be my next question to that, to make this go even longer. So what if that person is not willing to be understanding towards you, which it kind of seems like it really has gone a lot of the times?
Oh, I mean, you can't do anything about that. Just my opinion.
It's so agreeable. Everyone talks to you, huh?
What you're saying is if someone isn't open to and willing to discuss and talk, right?
Right. Like, do you, like me personally, I would probably just be like, okay, I'm not even gonna, might be harsh, but I'll probably be like, all right, I'm just not really gonna talk to you anymore anyway. I mean, I'm already pretty introverted to begin with, so I don't really talk to people. But but if it's someone that I know, it's just not gonna be worth the conversation, like to even try to make it a conversation. And it's not even gonna, like, I know it's just gonna be a headache.
Hmm.
Or it starts to become a headache. Do you try to keep the understanding, keep turning the other cheek kind of thing? Or kind of like, when do you put a foot down and like,
Well, I think
does that make
I think that you can voice. I mean, I found that I can still voice myself, uh,
as we should?
and still turn the other cheek because I think to turn the other cheek means there's not necessarily any judgment of the individual, A, and B, there's still tolerance of the individual.
Mhm.
And at some point, of course, everybody has their limits. So, and you're going to only learn what those are when you come into contact with that kind of situation. So, but can you apply yourself to continue understanding? I mean, it's something that I've practiced just in my professional life, sort of out of necessity, and then out of also willingness too. So, um, but I mean, I trained people how to tutor for 6 years, so I have a very like practiced patience where it's not even like I still think I'm being personally patient, but I think partially it's like out of habit. I just can ask questions and not be perturbed by
Yeah.
insults or answers at times
Mm.
that seem to maybe upset others just because I'm in the process of asking so much.
Yeah.
Clear, I'm not asserting myself, but I'm asking questions to get at the underlying root cause of whatever's believed, whatever's thought, whatever's argued, to get to premises that warrant the conclusion. So, like for me, it's all just like I'm
It's just
learning.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just learning the whole time. Like you're going to teach me, and then I'll be able to ping back some questions, and then I'll find where I can insert myself and insert my arguments, and then I can, yeah.
Hmm.